बिस्मिल्लाह रहमान रहीम। कैन यू हेयर मी? आवाज आ रही सबको? ओके। So today we will discuss the SCQs, short answer questions, which comes. This is the one of the part of your examination theory. So today we will discuss a different questions from the surgical paper one. So basically, this is the surgery in journal. So this is the difficult for the students because all this syllabus is covered in the third year, almost in the third year subject, and some topics they are discovered in the fourth year. So it becomes a difficult for the students to uh, remember all these the previous which is taught. And majority student they have not attended the classes. So that's why I'm trying to discuss the paper one questions which comes. So we will go on discussing these SCQs. So every SCQs has a full chapter. You cannot answer of one SCQs from one chapter. So it is difficult to grasp the whole SCQs from one chapters. So sometimes you have answers from multiple chapters. So then it becomes a full scenario or question of the patients. So today's first question we will discuss here is 60 years old female. So these are the certain buzzwords. Words are those words which shows there's some significance in the SCQs. Presented with the vomiting and severe pain in the left inguinal region for 1 hour. On clinical examination, it is suspected this is the strangulated femoral hernia. So basically, this is the SCQs of the surgical anatomy. In the exam, you can get many type of the surgical anatomy. So this is basically the surgical anatomy of the femoral canal area. You can get a surgical anatomy of the inguinal canal. You can surgical anatomy of the abdominal wall regarding the hernia when you are talking about. So here, the old age patient presented with the vomiting and the severe pain. So there is a certain sign of the obstruction, and he has also told this is the strangulated femoral hernia. So the first question is name the anatomical boundaries occupied by this hernia. The second question is which structure impedes the reduction of the hernia? If you try to reduction hernia during operative procedures, so what structures which can cause a difficulty? You have to answer this question. And which vessel is prone to injure during the procedure? So there are certain vessels which are present in this femoral triangle. They can be damaged during the surgical. So we will discuss all these three questions in detail. So the first question is the walls of the femoral hernia has a femoral vein on the lateral sides, the inguinal ligaments anteriorly, the pelvic bone covered by the iliopectineal ligament. This is also called the Ashley Cooper's posteriorly, and the lacunar ligaments. This is the hard ligament. It is also called the gymnoids medially. So these are the structures of the femoral canal which are lying there through which the hernia passes. So these are the bounding. The first question is just asked about the boundaries. And which is the structure which cause impedance, which has a difficulty. This is the lacunar, and this is the lacunar part is the very hard. Sometimes for the reduction, you have to cut these lacunar ligaments during the management of this femoral hernia. And there is a vein. So these veins they are very fragile. It can be damaged during the procedure of the surgery. Although femoral hernia is not a common one. When you are asked what is the most common hernia, that is the inguinal hernia in the total. If it is asked about the females, even in the female, the inguinal hernia is the commonest. But among the femoral hernias, if you are asked about, so in which sex the femoral hernia occurs, so then you will say this is the female patient in which the femoral ratio is more as compared to the male patients. And usually they present in the old age and they present with the obstruction and the strangulations. Very rarely you can get without complication these femoral hernias. So in the exam, this is the full SCQ which has come about the femoral hernia management, the surgical anatomy. So in other scenarios, you can get a question about the management and the different procedures which are used for the repair of this hernia. The next SCQ. अगर आपका कोई क्वेश्चन हो तो आप इनबॉक्स में लिखते हैं, मैं आपको बाद में बता दूं। अगर कोई इस लेवल पे अगर कोई क्वेश्चन है आपका तो वो माइक ओपन करके पूछ सकता है। आई थिंक इट इज क्लियर, फैमिली हर्निया में कोई इतनी मुश्किल नहीं है। So the next SCQ is a 20 years old man got rollover injury by the motor vehicle over the lower limb. On examination, his pulse is 90 per minute and the blood pressures are 140/85. And local examination revealed the skin is lifted from the bed and distal pulses are palpable. So this is basically type of the injury. So that's why the examiner has asked, what is this type of the wounds? You have to answer what is this type of wound, because the skin is lifted from the bed and the distal pulses they are intact. So the rollover injury. So these are the different buzzwords which are used in this scenario. If you carefully see these buzzwords, the answer is lying in these buzzwords. The second question, what is the most likely danger in this wound? Think about what may be the diagnosis. So later on we will discuss it. So think about in your mind what it might be. So what is the most likely danger in this wound? So what danger can occur if this wound has occurred, and how will you manage this wound? So always in the SEQs, you may be asked about the diagnosis, you may be asked about the investigations, and you may be asked about the different management options. So that we discuss one by one. So this is the type of the degloving wound, and it is the closed type. There is no wound over the wound wound site. So it is the hidden. That's why it is the closed. And the all the skin it is lifted from the bed. So the blood supply is compromised of the flap. So the second answer is non-viability of the skin. The skin is not viable. So this is the most dangerous area. Although it looks a very in the initial period, the skin looks very nice. But if you pinch or lift the skin, you feel there is nothing it is attached in the bed. It is lifted. So when this is lifted, it will compromise the whole flap of the blood supply. So how will you management? So always you know the management in the emergency scenario is you follow the ATLS protocol like A, B, C, D, and E, and then you resuscitation of the patients, ruling out any associated injury. As in this patient, there is no vascular injury, there is no fracture at all, and examination under anesthesia is required with the radical excision of all the non-bleeding skin. So this is the very important to know how the you know this skin is viable or not. It becomes sometimes very difficult to know the in the initial period viability of the skin. So it is judged by the bleeding dermis. Dermis is bleeding or not. So one of the tests, the fluorescein angiography is one of the tests. So this fluorescein angiography is also used by the eye surgeons. They gave a fluorescent IV in the blood and then it will color the area. So the same it can be used in this glowing injuries to find out where is the viable area is while the patient is under anesthesia. And you see with the ultraviolet light, this is the procedure and perfusion is with the yellowish green color and the non-viable skin for the oxygen clearly matter. The main objection for this method is, so there is anaphylactic shock can be occurred due to this fluorescein sensitivity. This is the one limitation which is not commonly used. Most surgeons they don't use this procedure. They just serial excision until the punctate dermal bleeding is obvious, you see. And the split skin grafts can be harvested from the degloved non-viable skin and meshed to cover the raw area resulting from them. This is one of the methodology. So all the skin at this moment, this is the full type of the skin graft. You remove this full thickness graft, remove it, and then apply defatting this area and then apply this skin in the denuded area. So this is one of the technique which can be used in the degloving injuries. So these injuries are common. They present in the emergency. If you totally remove all the skin, then it becomes later on granulation will tissue and you will cover it the partial thickness grafts. But here, this is one of the technique which can be used to take the full thickness graft and defat it and apply it, and let's see it cause a good results. So the next SCQs, third, a 45 years old man underwent above knee amputation for the gas gangrene of the lower limb. So the examiner has told you a young patient having a above knee amputation for the gas gangrene. So you know the gas gangrene in the emergency situations, it is related to the timeline. So as soon as the patient presents, you have to early do the amputations. So on the seventh post-operative day, what has happened to the patients? Patient presented with the massive bleeding from the wound sites. So on the seventh day, the patient started the bleeding from that edge. So what is this type of hemorrhage? So basically, this is the question of the bleeding hemorrhages. The examiner wants to assess so how much you know about the hemorrhages. So there are primary hemorrhages, secondary hemorrhages, and the tertiary hemorrhages. So what are the factors responsible for this bleeding and what are the principles of the management? If you know the exact diagnosis at this moment, then you will be able to know the factors and the principles of the management. So in all these questions, the most important is the first question. You must be knowing the what is the hemorrhage diagnosis. Then you will be able to answer all the other questions. Now we discuss what are the answers. So this is the secondary hemorrhage. You know there are three types of the hemorrhage: primary, secondary, and tertiary. The primary hemorrhage is at the time of this. When you are operating a patient, the hemorrhage is occurring during the amputation, the which bleeding has occurred, that is the primary hemorrhage. And the reactionary hemorrhage is within 24 hours. You have operated the patients and reach in the ICU or in the ward, and then patient starts to bleeding. So there are different factors for those, and there are different factors for the primary hemorrhage. So that is the uh, reactionary hemorrhage. So here the patient has presented after 7 days, about sufficient after sufficient time. So this is called the secondary hemorrhage. So this secondary hemorrhage has a certain causes. One of the reason is the sloughing of the walls of the vessels. There is an infection. There is a pressure necrosis from the drains. So if you have a put a drain, so all these can cause a de-sloughing of the vessel and patient will present painless bleeding. So this is not a painful bleeding and patient is unnoticed and the dressing is soaked and there is a lot of bleeding from the vessel which we have tied during amputation. They are de-sloughed. So the important factor is the infection because it is the dirtiest surgery. It is performed due to the gas gangrene. So the how will you manage? They identify the hemorrhage. So the immediate resuscitation with the fluids and identify the site and the pressure packing. So you apply a pressure over that area and in the theater use suturing technique to stop the bleeding. So if you find any bleeder, big bleeder, so you suture, apply that and stop this hemorrhage. So this is one of the mortality. If supposedly patient bleeds in the at the night, it is unnoticed. Such patients, so they can die due to the hemorrhage and the bleeding. So this is the common problem of the secondary hemorrhage which occur in those amputations which are performed for a severe infection like a gas gangrene or any other type of infection that leads to hairs. यहाँ तक समझ आ गई आप लोगों को? Is there any question you can ask me? अगर ये clear नहीं हुआ तो. So the next SCQs. A 20 years old female got corrosive burn to the esophagus. So this is the corrosive injury of the esophagus. In emergency room, resuscitation of the patient was done and she is unable to take by mouth. Obviously, she cannot take all the mouth, the esophagus that is damaged. So the enteral nutrition is planned in this patient. So there is one of the indication for the enteral nutritions. You know, there are many indications for the enteral nutritions. So there are two type of the nutritions which you commonly use. One is the enteral nutrition and other is the parental nutrition. So the enteral nutrition is by the natural route by mouth or putting the nasogastric tube. This is second. But in this, the whole esophagus is damaged. You cannot put any NG tube or you cannot give orally to these patients. So the other route is you pass a tubes in the stomach, you pass a tube in the jejunum. So you give a nutrition through that. So that is the other way for the enteral nutrition. And parental is you give the nutrition with the IV line. So what are the common enteral nutrition techniques? We will discuss what metabolic and tube related complication can occur during enteral nutrition. So in this scenario, the nutritional techniques are asked and the metabolic, the complication they will be asked. So the feeding gastrostomy and the feeding gynostomy. These are the two techniques which can be used in such patient which the oral route is not available. The natural route is not available. So when there is a esophageal injury, the later on the patient can present with the stricture or other ways. So the feeding gastrostomy is considered best for enteral feeding. So because you put the food in the stomach and that the mix up with the acids or other way, then it passes into. But in certain condition, the pylorus is also fibrosed. It is also injured when the injury has occurs. So in those conditions, the later on it can becomes a blockage this area, one thing. The second, when later on, supposedly, unfortunately, the patient has got stricture of the esophagus and you are going for the surgical procedures for the transhiatal esophagectomy, then you have to use the conduit as a stomach. Then it becomes difficult to use this stomach when the already the tube is you have make a hole in it. So then we commonly use the feeding gynostomy is a good choice for such patients in which the esophageal part and the stomach is damaged. So what are the tube-related complications? It may cause infection, the bleeding to the patient. It can be displaced. It can be blockage. It can break. So it can leakage locally. So all these are the complications. So there are metabolic. So the patient can get a diarrhea. The hyperosmolar diarrhea can lead to, and the electrolyte disturbance. The patient can have electrolytes disturbance like the sodium and potassium and the trace elements. They may be disturbed. So the certain vitamins and the minerals and trace elements deficiencies can occur in all these patients. So this is the one of the scenario about the nutrition. So you are assessed about the nutrition. There are many other questions about the nutrition in which you are asked to evaluate. So the one question Abira asked, why gastrostomy and the enterostomy called total enteral nutrition? The total enteral nutrition is wholly solely you get all the nutrition from these tubes. Then you can call it is. In certain conditions, the partially the patient can get from the oral route or other way, then it can be used. Otherwise, if you are totally giving the diet from the gastrostomy tube or the gastrostomy tube, then it calls the total enterostomy. So this word is not commonly used. The total is only used for the total parental nutrition. The parental nutrition is the IV nutrition, and that may be total parental nutrition as well as it is the partial. So in the partial, the patient this, to some extent can take orally, and but it is supplemented with the uh, partial parental route. Is it clear or not? अबीरा क्लियर होगा आपको ये? Okay. So the next SCQs is a 25 years old poultry farm worker is brought with inability to open his mouth for the last 3 days. He had injury on the right foot 10 days ago, but kept working barefooted in the farm without treatment. So this is the detected young man has a injury in the foot, and that has uh, caused the problem to the patients. So what is the diagnosis of the high index of suspicions in these patients, and which organism is responsible, and we outline the management. So the patient is unable to open his mouth, so the lockjaw can occur. So this is one of the infections, which cause a problem of the tetanus. Now we discuss. This is the tetanus. It is different from the tetany. There is a difference between the tetanus and the tetany. Tetany is a metabolic problem. So that is due to the hypocalcemia. There is a low level of the calcium that leads to the tetany. But the tetanus is due to the infections. So the Clostridium tetani is one of the specific infections that leads to the tetanus. So against the tetanus, there are the vaccination programs to avoid such injuries and to avoid such lockjaw or the problems of this tetanus. So the management is a very important. So there are certain principles in the management of the tetanus. You can get full question about it, management plan about the tetanus. So the first important is the isolation. You have to isolate such patient because the certain stimulus can cause a problem to the patient. So the patient can get the fits. So the quietness of the room and the comfort of the area is mandatory, and the drainage of the pus and the wound toileting will be needed because there is a focus area. You have to irrigate this area to clean that, so the load of the organism can be reduced. So for this management, we use the human tetanus, anti-tetanus globally intramuscularly to limit the effects of the free toxin. Should be used in the dose of 2500 units to give cover throughout the period of the established active immunity by giving toxides. So there is a passive immunity and there is a active immunity. So immunoglobulins and the toxides. So the toxides are causing the active immunity in these patients. And seriously ill patient with dysphagia and reflex spasm will need to have a nasogastric tube passed and the sedation. So these are the management of all the unconscious patients. And the diet you need for the intravenous nutrition, as in we have discussed the enteral, but here you need the intravenous initially, but later on you will pass a nasogastric for the feeding. So the maintenance of the balanced protein intake and the renal function and the cardiac function will be priority. So a tracheostomy may be considered if the patient has any difficulty in breathing. The meticulous care of the tracheostomy to include the suction and inhalation. So only this is the question of the tetanus. But all the management which is mentioned here, so it has a different parts like the tracheostomy. You will get this tracheostomy care in a different chapter, the antenuation or the parentenuation. So this knowledge comes from other chapters, and so these are the different things you have to consider when you are answering the question of such attributes. So this is the question about the tetanus. So the next issue is a 45 years old lineman electrician got electrocution while working high tension electrical lines. On examination, he had entry wound on the hand and exit wound on the foot. So when there is a electrocutions, the injury, so there is an entry wound in the hand regions when it holds the electric wire and the current passes through the body and exits on the foot sides. So what possible damage can occur? So the first question is, what is the important during the management of these patients? Basically, this is a question of the burn, and it is the elective burn which is asked. So you maybe ask the flame burns or the other burns. So this is one of the scenario of the electric burns. So the first answer of the question is there is a damage to the subcutaneous tissue and the muscle, and it will swell up, so it will lead to the compartment syndromes. So when the muscle they are swell up with the injury, it causes pressure in the subcutaneous area. It will pressure over the vessels. So ultimately, these vessels become thrombosed or the pressure. So the distal to that part that will be a damage. So the myoglobinemia, so the muscle they are burned out, so they are in the urine excreted, and it lead to the ATN to the patients. The renal failure can occur in these patients, and this compartment syndromes need the early release. You have to give incisions to release the pressure. So the renal function and the severe acidosis and the cardiac. So all these are the cascades which can lead to the mortality of in these patients. When it comes to the maintain the high urine output is mandatory to find out the myoglobinuria the policies of the bicarbonate for the acidosis, and they monitor the cardiac activity and fasciotomy if compartment syndrome has occurred, and the amputation if severe damage to the limb has occurred. So in the management, in the electrical, so your treatment is very aggressive in these conditions. So you have to do all these things to manage the patient. So in the exam, you have to mention all these things in the SCQs. Then you will be able to get maximum marks in your exam. Otherwise, the student they write on the different things supposedly, and they cannot pass uh, SCQs. So the next SCQ is a 30 years old whitewasher presented with the swelling of the dominant arm for pass. The dominant arm which is using his arm for the whitewashing. On examination, the distal pulse is palpable. The arm is swollen and painful. In spite of the distal pulses, they are palpable. The arm is swollen and be painful. So there is distal swelling and it is painful. So what is the possible clinical diagnosis and what are the predisposing factors and what is the emergency imaging study and the treatment? So this scenario is taken from the vessels area. So this is there is a full chapter of the arterial and venous and the lymphatic drainage. So this question is from that area. So this is the thrombosis of the axillary vein. So when the axillary vein is thrombosed, so it will cause the edema on the distal parts. Hold the hand, the other will be distended. So excessive exercise in the patient with anatomical abnormal thoracic outlet, but is also associated with the excessive muscle bulk as found in the weightlifters. So if the muscle bulk is more, so they have a working like this, the over the head they are doing, so they can get this facial vein thrombosis. Vein may be compressed by a striker if it is present. So these are the different factors which can lead to thrombosis of axillary vein. And this is the emergency situation. If the patient present with the chronic, this is not chronic limb ischemia because the pulses are palpable in these conditions. So the only the sudden the duration is the small, and that has caused a problem to the patients. And there is no gangrene in the distal part that has occurred. So that's why it is not a chronic limb ischemia. So it is basically due to the venous. So this was the difficult question. So the CT angio and the thrombus can be removed by the thrombolysis and delivered through the one of the arm veins. So this is the emergency procedures in which thrombectomy is performed, and the first you can do the CT and you will tell you whether the artery is involved or the vein is involved. So you can make your diagnosis with the CT angio, and then you will be able to do the in emergency situation. When you remove the axillary vein thrombosis, so the later on it will settle down. It will save the limb of the patient because the alternately the swelling is continuously there, so it will lead the pressure over the arteries also, and later on the arteries will be compressed, and then patient has an acute ischemic limb, not the chronic, acute ischemic limb. In the chronic ischemic limb is present for many years. That chronic limb ischemia cannot cause at a sudden changes in the limb, and sometimes the acute and chronic can lead to sudden changes. The question number 8: what are the options for controlling the severe pain in the malignant condition? So this is a scenario about the management of the pain. So how will you manage that pain? So especially in the malignant disease. So this is important because in malignancy, it is the one of the challenging to control the pain. So we start with the oral morphine using the low release and coated tablets. Sometimes they are available, sometimes they are not available, and certain drugs which contain some amount of morphine. So then the slow infusion of the opiates subcutaneously by epidural or the intrathecal. So these are the different techniques according to the where is the malignancy is present there. You can do the epidural or the intrathecal. Then the neurolysis for the patient with the limited life expectancy. If the patient has a very limited life expectancy, you can paralyze the nerve. So the palliative hormones, the radiotherapy, or the steroids control pain from swelling. So we are talking this pain management for the chronic pain management. So here the examiner has not asked just the management of the pain. So that is a different questions. If you are asked about the post-operatively management, that will be a different things. But here the examiner has asked about the chronic pain. So due to the malignancy, in which what are the options of how will be managed? Asiko 9, a 32 years old dancer got the sprain of the ankle joint and presented in the emergency with severe pain and swelling around the malleolus. So what is the role of the ultrasonography in the emergency orthopedic? Although this is the sprain of the ankle, but the examiner has not asked how you manage the sprain here. So this is the question from the imaging studies. So what is the role of the ultrasonography in the emergency orthopedic and give the strength and weakness of the ultrasonography. So what are the cons and cons of the use of the ultrasonography in such orthopedic? So this was the question about the investigations. So this ultrasound will help out in the ligament, tendon, and muscle injury to find out the foreign bodies in the soft tissue. So this is the role of the ultrasonography in such injuries. What are the strengths? There is no radiation. It is inexpensive, allows interaction with patients. You are interacting with the patient at the same time you are doing the ultrasonography. So the weakness are interpretation only possible during the examinations. The resolution depends on the material available. Image cannot be reliably reviewed away from the patient. So these are certain weaknesses which are in the use of the ultrasonography. So it is a major role in making the diagnosis in the sports injury, especially like hematoma formation and the injury of the muscles. But above all these, the MRI is a good choice. But here the examiner has only asked about the ultrasonography. But if you're asked about the gold standard, the best, that will be the MRI. So this is the last SCQs of the today. That 55 years old female planned for adjuvant chemoradiotherapy after modified radical mastectomy for invasive ductal carcinoma of the breast in the routine. What do you know about the adjuvant chemotherapy and what are the basic principles of the combined therapy? So these are the two questions which are asked about the chemoradiotherapy. So the adjuvant therapy is after the operation of the malignant tumor. You know, adjuvant means the first you treat the malignancy with the surgery and then you the adjuvant therapy. The second use the neoadjuvant is before giving the therapy. And use effective agents, use agents with different methods of the exchange. So there must be a synergy of the drugs. If the one drug acting on other duplicate and the other is acting on, so do you have to combine the synergy effect and use non-overlapping toxicity. So the drugs they are used multiple. So the every drug has a very limited toxicity. If you use only one drug, so that has a main complication and the side effect and the toxicity. So that's why the multiple drugs with the low toxicity, they are combined and they are more effective in treating as a chemotherapy in such patients. So this is all about the questions SCQs from the surgical paper one we have discussed. So any question you have, I will answer you. At the moment, so the question is there any other method to check the viability of the skin other than injecting IV fluorescein and checking the sensations? So you can check the sensation of the patient, but you cannot check the viability. So the viability is only assessed during the operations. You lift the skin, as soon as you are doing it, you find where this is attached and the areas are viable. Otherwise, without fluorescein, it becomes a difficult. But it is not normal routine to use the IV fluorescein because due to the anaphylactic reaction which can occur, you have to give a lot of fluorescein IV in such a patients. Otherwise, in the skin, the at this moment, no technique is available. So just rely on the clinical examination during operation of the patients, whether it is viable or not. Transhiatal, transhiatal esophagectomy, why do we use feeding gastrostomy? Is there are chances of allergy reaction as we give fluorescein dye? Yes, the first uh, fluorescein dye has an anaphylactic reaction. That's why it is limited use. During anesthesia, you cannot find the anaphylactic reaction कि उसको हो गया या नहीं है तो आप नहीं कर सकते. So the आमना का question है transrectal esophagectomy. Why do we use the feeding gastrostomy? We don't use. This is not a preferable feeding gastrostomy. The later on you go for the transrectal esophagectomy. We use the feeding jejunostomy. Feeding gastrostomy is a not option because the later on you have to use the stomach for as a conduit. So you will not make a hole in the feeding the will not use feeding gastrostomy. We use the feeding jejunostomy. That is the preferable method.